Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G and joining me right now is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And today we're going to be taking a look at perhaps one of the most interesting movies to come out this year. Now, people complain about whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. This one is certainly going to go into that pile as well because this is a Christmas movie about Santa, who's actually a character called Kris Kringle, of course, played by Mel Gibson, but he's being hunted down by an assassin referred to as Skinny Man, played by Walton Goggins, of course, from The Shield and a bunch of other movies where he always plays the bad guy. Now, this is a little bit of a difference because Kris technically works for the US government. Santa is a person who is hired to make toys and deliver it to all the good kids as a government way to try and make kids act good. Now, it hasn't been working very well for the past few years. Kris is in financial difficulty, the government's not paying up, and suddenly he has this extra pressure put on him and his wife, Ruth, played by Marianne Jean-Baptiste, because of one little kid called Billy Weenan, played by Chance Hurstfield, that decides it's time for Santa Claus to die. Now, mate, this movie is so far out there, it sounds like it would never work, but what are your thoughts on Fatman?
Yeah, it really was an interesting concept. Like, I'm a big fan of Mel Gibson, and I like seeing him do like these random smaller movies when obviously he doesn't need the money. You know, like Draped Across Concrete and Bloodfather were like really like enjoyable films. I also love uncommon approaches to like standard genre films, and like hearing that like Fatman was a movie where Mel Gibson plays a Santa Claus and is in a violent life or death battle with a hitman who's been sent to kill him by for giving a little kid a coal in his stocking. Like, that should have been enough to set this up to make it one of the best like cult favorite Christmas films of all time. I mean, elements, certain performances of it I like. I always like Walter Goggins, like regardless of what movie he's in. Mel Gibson is great in it, and Hertzfeld was great as a kid. But like, unfortunately, I thought while having like an interesting premise, and I also enjoyed like the build up specifically of the Santa character and how he was handled for the most part. I was a little disappointed with how the movie did. Well, what the movie did with all these interesting elements, and kind of it felt like it didn't really have much of an idea of where it was headed. Like the whole movie is a build up to, I guess, these things clashing, and I don't know, it just didn't feel like it really it had a pop that it should have had. So I don't know. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I love the concept of this movie. I thought it was so creative having Kris Kringle work for the government, like that whole change up of what the Santa Claus myth means to everybody. But I found the disappointing part of this movie was there was too many things that happened that didn't really have any references to them. And I don't want to spoil this movie, but it kind of gets revealed late in this movie that Santa has superpowers that are never mentioned earlier on. Like, the way that it's set up is it really just feels that, like, yeah, Kris is a regular guy. He knows a little bit of magic, like that's how he gets his reindeers to fly and stuff like that. But yeah, it just, to me, it came down to the directors or the screenwriter wanting this great big epic finale, but then not knowing how to get the characters out of it, like without doing something that hasn't really been referenced all that earlier on. I thought that was kind of lazy, like, and there were so many different ways that they could have got out of that, and I guess like they've almost set themselves up for that fail because you have this character of Kris that they've set up that, yeah, he's a nice guy, on the flip side, they've set up that Walton Goggins' assassin never fails at his job. Like, he's got a 100% kill rate, and he walks away from it at the end without getting caught. So, yeah, it's kind of, they've put themselves in this awkward position where they've set up both of the characters going head to head as almost being immortal in what they do. So, yeah, it's really interesting, but it really felt like early on that these directors and the screenwriter had a great idea for a movie, but then they weren't exactly sure how to end the film, because I reckon 3/4 of the way into this movie, I was ready to give this film 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I loved the whole Scandinavian feel to the film, but then it just didn't have an ending that I was happy with. And I saw this around the same time as I saw Let Him Go with Kevin Costner, which I thought was one of the perfect films of this year. I thought they absolutely nailed it with Let Him Go. So I thought this movie was a great movie with a great concept that's let down by a pretty weak kind of ending that's a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, like, no, Mel Gibson was great as Santa, and Chance Hurtsfield he's great as Billy, the little selfish rich kid who gets everything he wants and will raise hell if he doesn't. And yeah, again, like, Walter Goggins is great as a hitman with a grudge of his own against Santa. Like, the 3 characters never really clashed in a way, in much of a satisfactory way. Like, the majority of the film features each character going about their own thing, and in that way, the character Billy is almost forgotten about once he tasks Walter Goggins' hitman character with killing Santa. Like, the hitman tracking down Santa idea is interesting. Like, the movie mixes like the fantasy of Santa Claus and the elves and North Pole with like real world black humor of Tarantino or Coen Brothers movie, but it never really reaches the heights of either of those. Like, it becomes kind of more of a procedural. He goes here, he asks this guy about this, he drives and drives and drives. You know, like that's what Walter Goggins is doing for most of the movie. Like, Mel Gibson is Chris, and his crisis of faith in people and the good of humanity and what he's doing. Like, that's clearly the main focus of the movie. Like, I liked it, but it felt like it could have been better tied in with the whole murder for hire storyline.
Yeah.
Like, Chris doesn't even know that there's a hitman out to kill him until, like, very near the very end of the movie. Like, and like for all the rest of the time, he's struggling with, like, the morality of using his helpers and his toy building facilities as this means to help the U.S. military in order to pay for his whole operation in the first place. Like, I did find that really interesting, but this isn't a really this isn't a really, like, long movie, and that's a subplot within a subplot. So, as you say, dude, it's brushed aside, and the whole idea of Santa's workshop being turned into this military installation just gets forgotten about at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like one of those movies where someone had a great basis for the film, and then they've been sitting in the room and everyone's gone, oh, what if we did this as well? And what if we did that? And what if we put this in? And what if we put that in? And, like, they've just kind of lost control of it. The one thing I was really happy about was this movie was billed as a Mel Gibson movie, as was Force of Nature, which came out like a few weeks beforehand. But for those of us who are a Mel Gibson fan, when we went to see Force of Nature, we were kind of like a little bit put out that he's by no means the lead in that film. Like, which kind of felt weird because, like, he's on the poster and everything, and they've really kind of, like, really pushed that, yeah, this is a Mel Gibson movie, people rejoice, but it's an Emile Hirsch movie. It's not a Mel Gibson movie. Emile Hirsch is the main guy. Mel Gibson, like, has obviously put himself in the movie because it's come through his production company, but it's not a Mel Gibson movie, whereas this is a Mel Gibson movie. Yeah. It's Mel Gibson versus Walton Goggins. So, yeah, I was a lot more pleased that this film was the Mel Gibson movie that I was hoping Force of Nature was going to be.
Yeah, it's a pity when movies kind of do that. Like, there's the whole thing, like Superman, with Marlon Brando credited as top billed, and Gene Hackman and Christopher Reeve. I don't even think his name's on the poster.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that happens a lot in movies. I know I do keep bringing up a lot of recent Bruce Willis straight to DVD films, but yeah, that does kind of, it's disheartening for people that sometimes they do go to see a movie like for a particular star, and like it is kind of a bit of a bait and switch. And
Yeah.
I know that's the entire point, but it's kind of low to do that in movies. Like when, like it is kind of low to do that in a film. Like, oh yeah, it's totally a Mel Gibson movie, and then it's not.
Yeah.
Like I mean, if the movie's good enough, it can sell. It's still fine. But I don't know, if people just want to go watch it, it does kind of bring up the this is something that we've been talking about, like with posters and like the way that advertising and promotion of a movie really affects how you take the movie going into it. Like in a perfect world, it wouldn't, but it kind of does. So like you see like a poster of a movie making it look like a B film, and you go see it, and it's something completely different than what you're expecting. Sometimes it's a pleasant surprise, and then other times it can actually hurt the movie. I think that's one of the reasons that something I've been thinking about recently, that the movie Danger Close didn't really do that well in Australia. Even as great of a movie that it was, I think is really because people just thought it was a cheesy action film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I don't know, like with this, like talking about the magical elements, as you say, like they're completely absent at the start, like, which is odd for a Christmas, a Santa Claus movie, and then they're slowly drip fed to us. Like, I think it's almost an hour into the film before we even see any of Santa's helpers.
Yeah.
And this is actually after Santa's gone, like, on his, Christmas Day. This is actually after that. Like, we don't... It starts off just with Santa being presented as just a man, and yeah, it's just as the film goes on and on, you realize, yeah, this guy's special. This guy has powers, and I did think it was an interesting approach to the movie where, like everyone watching it knows Chris is Santa Claus, but his supernatural abilities aren't focused on, which allows us to really focus on the more personal drama of his character. As you say, this is definitely a Mel Gibson movie. It's definitely really focused on his, like, what he's going through. But yeah, I still feel that when the movie did bring up Santa's powers, I think more could have been done to really make it pop. Like, again, the movie, it doesn't feel like it's really going anywhere towards the end. There's a showdown, and I don't really want to talk too much about that, but it's like, I don't know, it's not really the big conclusion to these two forces working against each other. As you said, Santa didn't even know that there was a hitman coming for him. It's just, oh, okay, I got to fight off this guy now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I thought too. That's why I found the ending of this so disappointing. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more with Walton Goggins' character as well, because ever since he played Shane in The Shield, he seems kind of typecast into these roles, and I love him as an actor. Like, I think he's one of those actors that if I see that he's working on a project, it goes into my diary to check it out. Yeah. But he's become one of those actors where, especially in feature film, he always ends up playing this kind of obscure kind of killer that doesn't always have a motive for why he's doing it. Just seems to enjoy it. So that's why I'm kind of glad that, like, we just saw him in Words on Bathroom Walls, where he doesn't play that kind of character, where he's like just a suburban dad trying to make ends meet kind of thing, and I kind of like that. Because movies like Cowboys versus Aliens, they just they've just made him this kind of cold character that never really has much to do except for try to kill the lead. And he's so much more than that. And yeah, he's got a TV show now as well in America where he plays a single dad. And it's really nice to get to see him doing a role that's just not a cold-blooded killer anymore. So I think they could have done more with his character in this film as well, in that they could have, because even his reason for, like, I hope this is not spoiling anything, but it just seems a little bit coincidental that this kid just happens to go and get the one assassin that's had a lifelong anger towards Santa. Like, it's not like it was even mentioned to the kid. The kid has used this guy to do other crap for him over the years, and he hires him, and this guy just happens to be obsessed with who Santa is and wants to kill him. So, yeah, it just seemed a little bit too coincidental for me. But having said that, what are you going to give this one out of 5?
Yeah, I'm going to give this 2.5 out of 5. I feel like it really was kind of a waste of the opportunities that the movie had. It was a great performance. As you say, Walter Goggins, he's great. Like, this is... It is good to see him playing like something more than just a throwaway character in a movie, and he has had a good few years. Like his performances in like Hateful Eight, and as you say, his TV show The Unicorn, Words on Bathroom Walls. Like he's had a good few years, and I'm glad that he's getting the recognition now that we think he deserves, because it's like we've been fans of him since The Shield, you know, for like good almost 20 years now. We've been fans of his, so I do like that. I do think that this movie could have taken a lot more use of his performance, and I don't know, really built towards something. And even the character of Billy, the idea that this is a young kid that could maybe he could be like he's on the naughty list as it is, but you know, things could be a lot worse. You know, like that could if he doesn't change his ways, things could be a lot worse. This, I don't know, it's just I think as a Christmas movie, because it really does seem to be it is missing that like vital kind of wholesome message.
Yeah,
like it is just kind of like it's a Hitman versus Santa movie, but it doesn't have that that wholesome kind of message that I think is really what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie. Like even something like Bad Santa is vulgar and over the top and like adult that is, it still has that wholesome message in it, and that's what I think this movie was missing. And so that's probably for me maybe its biggest crime as a Christmas film. So 2.5 for me. Yeah,
they don't really explore the fact that Billy is a psychopath. Like they talk about Walter Goggins' character being a psychopath. That kid like hired a hitman to go after a girl that beat him in the science fair. Like, he's a pure psychopath. He's even like at one point coming up with ways to kill his grandma. Like, but that's not it. And I thought that perhaps to make his character more interesting, they could have made him like a little bit over the top as a Richie Rich kind of character. So yeah, but I like the movie a little bit better than you. I think I would give it 3 stars. So it just, the ending really was disappointing for me, and especially after it had for me such a great opening where I was thinking this was really going to go into that kind of Scandinavian dark humor crime genre that I love so much. So that's it for our wrap up of Fatman. Kyle gave it 2.5. I gave it 3 stars. Go and check it out. See what you think. If you're a Mel Gibson fan, I think you're really going to love this, because it's Mel doing something a little bit different. But that's what we thought of Fatman. So for now, I've been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And we'll be back very, very soon with another episode of The Popcorn Conspiracy.